Hi, this is Tamara at mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to crochet the Simple Spa Slippers, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description where you will find both right and left-handed video tutorials, as well as a link to the written pattern and all of the supplies you need. This is a great easy beginner pattern made with Bernat Baby Velvet and Red Heart Super Saver. You'll also need a J-hook or whatever gets you gauge, scissors, and a yarn needle. Let's take a look at the finished slippers. Okay, so the first thing you might notice about the Simple Spa Slippers is just how simple they are. The right and the left are completely identical. Doesn't matter. This makes them extra easy to put on. The lack of shaping also makes them easier to crochet and makes them great for those whose feet don't fit into standard slippers. If you have flat feet, if you have very wide feet, if you need your slippers a little looser, this sort of pattern can be perfect for you. It's also great, like I said, if you're a beginner because it's got minimal shaping and really the only stitches we're using are the single crochet stitch and single crochet decreases. The slippers themselves are each made with 2 layers of sole and 1 layer of upper that are then seamed together at the very end to create each finished slipper. So for the bottoms made with the Red Heart Super Saver, you'll actually make 4 soles, 2 for each pair, and then with the Bernat Baby Velvet, you'll make 1 topper for each slipper. If you don't like the feel of velvet, a great alternative for the toppers might be Red Heart Scrubby Smoothie, or you could continue to use the Red Heart Super Saver, or whatever worsted weight yarn you like best. Let's go ahead and get started making our Simple Spa Slippers. Now, one of the first things I need to point out about the Simple Spa Slippers is that the yarn is held doubled. So when you are making the soles with the Red Heart Super Saver, you can, since it uses 1 skein, you can pull from both ends, from the center and from the outside. In order to make this as easy as possible without creating tangles, I like to pull up a fair bit from both ends and then sort of just wind them around my hand together so that they're all sort of set up and ready to work together. The other thing I want to point out is if we pull over the printed pattern here, this pattern does come in 3 sizes. These are based on U.S. women's shoe sizes, and on the site, this is a live link to the Craft Yarn Council sizing standards if you need more information on that. But these are standard women's U.S. shoe sizes, so the smallest size is for 4 to 6, the medium is for 7 to 9, and the large is 10 to 12. So when you're following the pattern, while the instructions for all the sizes are basically the same, some of these numbers are going to be different. The ones shown in the pictures are the largest size, which is what I wear. However, for the demo today, I'm going to be making the smallest. So what I recommend you do is print out your pattern and then go ahead and depending on which size you want to make, you can circle that number throughout the pattern or highlight it if you prefer using a highlighter, whatever works for you. But this is going to make sure you always follow the right set of instructions. So here where we have different numbers of rows because we want a longer sole for larger sizes, then sometimes the row counts will have the different numbers too. So for the smaller size, this would be rows 5 through 24, for the medium 5 through 27, for the large 5 through 30. So here I would circle the 24. For the next following rows, that one's pretty straightforward. It's either row 25, 28, or 31, depending on your size. And then here we've got some repeats again. So for the smaller size, it would be the first 2. For the medium, it would be the second 2. And for the large, it would be the last 2 numbers. So that carries throughout the pattern, including on the upper here, where we've just got a different number of chains and a different number of rows, depending on which size. So now we can go ahead and get started crocheting. Okay, so to begin our first sole, we are going to start with a chain of 5. You'll notice I already have the slip knot on the hook and the yarns are held doubled. So I'm just going to treat these 2 strands as if they were 1. And I'll go ahead and chain 5 for the smallest size, or 6 for the medium, or 8 for the large. So that's 4 and, oops, there we go, 5. So for this, I like to work into the back hump of the chain, which you can see right here. I just find it gives an easier edge to work into later. So we're going to skip the chain closest to the hook and then single crochet in each chain after that. Again, you just want to make sure you're going under both of those strands since it's 2 yarns held together here. So there's 2 and 3 and 4. So whatever number of stitches or chains rather that you began with, you'll have one less single crochets at the end of row 1. Then we're ready to begin row 2. Row 2, we're going to chain 1, turn, and then we're going to work 2 single crochets right in the first stitch. So there is 1. There we go, and there is 2. Then we're going to single crochet in each stitch across until 1 stitch remains. So we single crochet in the next stitch and in the next stitch all the way across until we get to that very last stitch, which since we're on the small, we are at now. And then we're going to put 2 single crochets right in that last stitch. So we will have 2 more stitches than we had in the previous row. So for the small, that would be 6 stitches. Rows 3 and 4 are a repeat of row 2. So once again, we'll chain 1, work 2 single crochets in the first stitch. There we go. Then single crochet across until 1 stitch remains. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And for me now, I'm at that last stitch, so I'll go ahead and put 2 single crochets right in there. Now you might notice it seems like the fabric here is very stiff, and it is. With these 2 yarns held double and a J-hook, I'm getting a really nice firm fabric. Be sure to check the gauge in the written pattern, which is 12 stitches by 12 rows equals 4 inches, to make sure that you're getting the right size. If that means you have to change hooks to get the same gauge, that's totally fine. We just want a nice, solid, thick, squishy fabric for our soles. So that was row 3. Row 4, like I said, is just a repeat again of row 2, so same thing. We chain 1, 2 single crochets in the first stitch, and then single crochet across until 1 remains. And then work 2 single crochets in that last one. So at the end of row 4, for the small, you should have 10 stitches. For the medium, you should have 11, and for the large, you should have 13. I'm almost there since I'm making this small. Looks like I've got 1 more before this last one. So let's go ahead and put our last 2 single crochets in here. So there's 1 and 2, and now is of course a really good time to count your stitches and make sure you're on track. I should have 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So I've got my 10 stitches there. I know it kind of covered up. Let's count those again together since this is a beginner pattern. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we've got our 10 stitches for our size small, and now we're ready for row 5. All right, now row 5 and the next several rows is where we get the length of our slipper. This is where we're working even. So we simply chain 1 and single crochet in each stitch across. So however many stitches we had in the previous row is the same one we'll have here. Now for the small size, this is rows 5 through 24. For the medium size, this is rows 5 through 27. And for the large, it's rows 5 through 30. We're just adding that extra length. Now, I do recommend after you have finished making your very first sole, since we have to make 4 of them, remember 2 for each foot, I strongly recommend that you go ahead and step on it, put it up to your foot. Make sure it's the right size for you. While we all know, there are standard sizes in the stores for shoes, they don't always fit. It changes by manufacturer and just your own quirks of your own foot. Everybody's foot's a little different. So it's okay to go ahead and hold your foot up to that first sole. And if you need to pull it back down a little bit and take out some rows if it's too long for you, or add some more rows if you have very long feet, but maybe they're a little narrower, it's a great opportunity to really adjust that for your own foot. So that's row 5. I'm going to go ahead and add a row 6, and then we'll pretend we're ready for our decreases. Now, like I said, normally we'd just keep working straight until we get about the length we need, and then we're ready to start decreasing to create that great rounded shape for the heel. So since we're just making a little swatch here, let's go ahead and jump on down to that section. If you are making the small, this would be row 25, the medium would be row 28, and the large would be row 31. Basically, the instructions for all of them are going to be the same. It's just a matter of which row count and how many stitches you'll have at the end. We're going to start with a chain 1 and turn, and then we're going to work a single crochet 2 together over the first 2 stitches. So if you'd like a closer look at this, I do have a separate video tutorial linked at the link in the description and on the Moogly YouTube channel, but I'll also demo it right here today. I'm going to go into that first stitch with my hook and yarn over and pull up a loop just as I normally would for a single crochet. But rather than yarning over and finishing it, I am going to go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop through there. And then with all 3 of these loops on my hook, I will yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops until we've got 1 stitch. So we've turned those 2 spaces into 1 stitch, because if we look at the top there, there's just 1 V. So then we're going to go ahead and just single crochet on across like we've been doing until there are 2 stitches left. And then we will single crochet 2 together in those last 2 stitches. So essentially this just really mirrors what we were doing on the foot of the slipper, or excuse me, at the toe. We are working our way up towards the toe, and we're just going to sort of do the opposite. Rather than increasing on the sides, we're going to pull them in. So we're down here to these last 2 stitches on this row. So we'll do the same thing. Insert our hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, insert the hook in our next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops to finish the stitch. So now for the small size, we've gone from having 10 stitches to hopefully 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we're on the right track. Now again, that was row 25 for the small, 28 for the medium, and 31 for the large. Then we get to rows 26 through 28 for the small, 29 through 31 for the medium, or 32 through 34 through the large. Basically, we're going to be repeating what we just did a few more times until we get down to just a few stitches to finish it off. So once again, that means we chain 1 and turn and work a single crochet 2 together in those first 2 stitches so that those 2 stitches now become 1. Single crochet on across until we've got 2 stitches left. Almost there since we're on our small size. And really you just want to make sure to take your time and make sure you're always yarning over with both of those loops. Now here we are already at those last 2 stitches. So I've yarned over with those 2 and pulled it through. Go into the last stitch, pull that up, yarn over, and finish that one off. So just keep repeating that row until you get to that final row. And again, for the small, that would be row 28. For the medium, row 31. For the large, row 34. At the end of that final row, for the small, you'll only have 2 stitches left. So it'll be a single crochet 2 together and a single crochet 2 together. For the medium, you'll have 3 stitches left at the end. And for the large, you'll have 5 stitches left. So let's go ahead and finish that up. Okay, so here on my small little swatch, I am down to just 2 stitches. So I know that was row 28 for me, and I am finished with this sole except for the edging. All I need to do for the edging is chain 1, and then I'm going to single crochet evenly all the way around. Now again, I have a separate tutorial about working into the edge, but these are single crochet rows, which makes it a little extra easy. Basically, what we want to do is crochet in the actual stitches of the previous row here. So there's our 2, because we're going to go all the way around. Then as we work our way down, we're going to work 1 single crochet in the side of each row. So just go ahead and put your hook in wherever it fits best and is nice and consistent for you and gives you an even look. And if you crochet 1 single crochet in the side of each row all the way around, and then 1 single crochet, and of course each of those foundation chains, this is where having worked into that back loops, it makes it so much easier to work into those. Then back all the way around, and then we will break our yarn and join those together. So I'll join you as soon as we're ready for that portion. Okay, so as you can see, I've crocheted all the way around our little swatch here. So what I want to do now is before I join to that first stitch I made, which normally you might do with a slip stitch, what I like to use here is sort of an invisible join. I'm going to go ahead and cut my yarns, leaving a good 6 inches or so to weave in those ends, and then I will simply pull my hook up. Let's see. There we go. You can use your fingers too, obviously. And then I will put those 2 ends together through my tapestry or yarn needle. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find that first stitch we made right there, and I can join to either this one or the next one. This is kind of up to you, and you can try both if you want to see which looks best for you. You just want to decide on one for your first sole and then use the same for the rest so that you end up with the same number of stitches around. Now, because we're working the round and we want a certain number of stitches, it is most advisable to go under that second one because what we're going to do with this yarn needle is create essentially what looks like a stitch over the top of this one. So this will give you the most consistent stitch count, but if you find that your edging is a little tight, you might want to work into that first one and just do that every time, and that's a great way to do it too. So I'm just going to pull that through until, let's see here, that little bit of yarn, where'd it go? There it is. I have to give it another tug so I can see it, is about the same size as another stitch. So I have to give this one a pretty good tug. Like I say, if you want to, you can definitely go into that first stitch instead. Then I'm going to take that yarn needle and go right back in the center, there we are, of the stitch that I finished last, that last stitch of the round here. Put my yarn needle right through there and pull down. And if I give it a good tug here and a little wiggle, a little zhuzh, then you can see it blends right in. It looks exactly like the other stitches that we did around. You can't really tell where that seam is. So then I can just go ahead and take my yarn needle and weave in these ends. So once you've made one of these, like I said, go ahead and even before you have finished off the edging, in case you do want to change it, go ahead and step on it, put it on the floor, stand on it, make sure it fits your foot, that you don't want to take out some rows, that you don't want to add some rows, just for your own foot size, whatever works for you. So once we've got all 4 soles made, you can see I've got another one right here waiting to be joined to create a slipper. Then it's time to make the upper portion of our Simple Spa slippers. Okay, now the upper portion of the Simple Spa slippers is made with Bernat Baby Velvet or your choice of yarns. Again, however, it is held doubled. Now for this portion, because this gray is so light, I've gone ahead and held some pink together with it, and you could use 2 colors together like this. I think it makes a really neat effect. Or of course, again, you can pull from both ends of the skein. This stuff is a little stickier, I guess you could say. It's got a little bit of more, I don't want to say roughness because it's incredibly soft, but it's got a little more texture. That's probably the word I'm looking for. So you do want to pull these out of the ball very carefully as you get them together, and just take your time and pull out a little bit at a time if you're working from the same ball for both ends. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got my slip knot already on the hook, and I am simply going to chain 13 for the small, 15 for the medium, or 16 for the large. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Again, if you're going for the medium, go ahead and make 15. For the large, make 16. Now we're simply going to kind of start the same way. Skip the chain closest to the hook and single crochet in each remaining chain across. Again, just make sure you're going under both of those strands of yarn. You can see here with the 2 colors, a little easier even. So we're just going to single crochet right on across. So at the end of row 1, if you are making the small, you should have 12 stitches. For the medium, you should have 14. And for the large, you should have 15. So I will see you at the end of row 1. Okay, so row 1 was pretty simple for the topper, and the next few rows are going to be just the same. If you're making the small, you'll want to go to row 10. If you're making the medium, 11. And if you're making the large, 12. And all you're going to do for all of these rows is chain 1 and single crochet evenly across. So go ahead and make your topper for your slipper, and I will see you as soon as it's done. Again, if you need those numbers, be sure to go to the link in the description for the written pattern, or if you're somewhere where you can't see the links in the description, please go to mooglyblog.com, and in the search bar, you can type in Simple Spa Slippers, or type mooglyblog.com Simple Spa Slippers in your browser. Okay, so once you've got all your parts made, it's time for assembly. So for each slipper, you'll have 2 soles and 1 topper. Obviously a bit bigger than this, unless you're making slippers for a pet. So we've got our 2 soles here, and you can see they're both facing up right now. This is the side I did that final edging from. So to assemble it, what we want to do is go ahead and turn one of those over so that the right sides are the ones facing out. So that's the little sandwich we make there. Now, this is going to make a relatively soft, although very, very squishy, which is delightful, but a bit of a bendable sole, which I don't mind. But if you do, this is your chance to take a piece of plastic canvas and cut it to size. So you can use this as a template, cut it just a little bit smaller than your soles, and sandwich it right in between these as you sew them together. That will add just that little bit of extra stiffness to your sole. And also, it will still be washable because it's plastic canvas. It can still get washed. So if you need to wash your slippers, that won't be a problem, unlike using something like cardboard that you wouldn't want to get wet. Another thing you can think about is if you want to add something non-slip to the bottom of your slippers. There are several products on the market for this. And again, if you go to the link in the description or search for the slippers on mooglyblog.com, I have a link to an article I've written with many great options that you can choose from to make your slippers non-slip. So back to assembly. We've got these two soles sandwiched together with the wrong sides together. We want to make sure we've got the ends where we've got the 4 stitches at one and the 2 at the other, or whatever the numbers are for your size, so that those heels are matched up and those toes are matched up. And then we're going to take our upper, and it doesn't matter, which one, go ahead and lay it across the top. Now you'll see right away, the topper is wider than the slippers. And that's because if you think about it, when you put on a pair of slippers, this is going to be flat on the ground, and your foot is going to need that little extra space. So don't worry about that too much. What we're going to do now is you want to count down and find those first 5 rows you made. Those are the ones that when you were expanding, when you were working from the toe down and it was getting wider, we want to go ahead and match this up with that very first row, that 5th or 6th row, depending on where you like to put it. You can adjust for you. In the instructions, I say to line up with row 6 right under row 5, but you can find the rows where you want to line it up and where it fits your foot best. And then what we're simply going to do is sew through all 3 layers as we work our way around. Then when we get to that other side, of course, line it up again. So we don't want to sew through this part. We want to sew right through the edge, sew through that edge, all the way around until we get to the end, and it will all be assembled. So let me give you a couple quick tips for this. To get started, what you're going to want to do is cut a length of yarn 2 to 3 times the amount needed if you were just to lay it out all the way around. That'll be sure to give you enough so you don't have to cut the yarn and do a second piece. Then I'm going to go ahead and take one of my soles, and from the inside where I know it won't show, that's where I'm going to go ahead and anchor down my yarn. Basically as if I was weaving in an end. I'm just going to go ahead and pull that all the way through right about to the end there, like so. And then I'll go back the other direction to lock it in, splitting that yarn if I can. There we go. And pull that back through so that it is nice and secure. It's not going anywhere. And then I can just sort of get it on over here to the edge as close as I can, like so. And then I will go ahead and find one of those outside stitches that I'm going to be sewing under. Send the needle under there so that it's now on the outside of that sole and ready to start being used. Then I can just put that down and get them lined up again. And at this point, if you have stitch markers or safety pins or something you want to use to secure these 2 together so that they're all lined up, you can do so, or you can just hold them. Same thing with this. If you want to send stitch markers through all 3 layers to help hold them in place as you sew, that can be a really helpful tip. Or you can skip it if you feel more confident. But basically, we're going to get these things lined up, and then we are going to back stitch through all 3 layers. So since this is just a little swatch, I'm just going to line this up here with this first stitch. You would of course make sure it's lined up in exactly the right spot on your slippers. And then I am going to go through the stitch on that sole, the matching stitch on the sole above. And if I'm at a place where I'm going through the upper, then I want to make sure to go through the upper as well. And you'll notice too, before when we made all these pieces, we're working with the yarn held doubled. I'm just using 1 string for this portion. So I'll go ahead and pull that all the way through. And then I can go this direction or this direction. It's totally up to you. I'll go ahead and let's go ahead and head off in this direction a little bit. So to do the back stitch, getting it started is often the hardest bit. We're going to go here to the right, go under the next 2 stitches, like so. And then we're going to skip 2 to the left. So we go under that one, catch that edge if it lines up nicely. And then we'll go right back down for the first set we did. Now, if you're not familiar with the back stitch, again, I do have a separate tutorial for it here on the Moogly YouTube channel. Oops, and if this happens to you, look at that. I caught my upper in that stitch. No big deal. Just pull that right back out and go ahead and pull it down. So then I'll skip 2 again from the bottom. And of course, I would normally have, like I say, I would normally have stitch markers around here to help me keep those lined up. But for the purposes of demonstration, we're just getting through it here. So I pull through there and then go back 1 more. So with the back stitch, it's a really secure stitch. It's a relatively easy sewing stitch or embroidery stitch if you've done any sort of hand sewing before. But you just kind of skip ahead and then go back, skip ahead and go back, so that at the bottom you're going to end up with sort of a double line of yarn, but at the top you'll end up with 1 fine line around. And you can see already, even with this very darker color, that you can't really see those stitches very much. It sort of pulls right into the velvet. And of course, if you're using more matching colors rather than the colors I used here to demo with, that will be even more hidden. So basically, we just work our way all the way around the outside of the slipper. And when you get about halfway around, that's a good point to sort of slip in the plastic canvas if that's something you're going to use. You don't necessarily need to be holding it in there right from the beginning. Wait till you've got a few stitches made, then put it in. It'll be a lot easier to hold in there. But you can just hold that right sandwiched in between, and you work your way right on around your slipper. When you get to the end then, all you'll need to do is weave in this final end here at the end of your yarn. You can go down to the bottom of your slipper if you want, work a couple ends back and forth, bury it right in the middle, pull it out, trim it off nice and close, and you'll be all set. So that really is all there is to making the simple spa slippers. You can see we've got our smaller edge down here, we've got our beginning edge up here. I've gone down about 5 rows to attach this one, but again, you can adjust it for your personal foot and how you like to wear your slippers. And if you prefer a closed toe, you can decrease your top just like you did here, and then you can sew all the way around the toe when you're going through this layer as well. So that would give you a closed toe, or you can leave it open like I've done right here. And of course, like I say, you can add that plastic canvas for a little more stiffness if you like. But you can see we've got our 2 layers sewed together here. And I just literally sewed through all the layers there. And if you go to the blog post with this pattern, there's some great close-up still photos for you to look at as well. And you'll end up with your own simple spa slippers. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it helps you make your own slippers. And I hope you'll give both Bernat Baby Velvet and Red Heart Super Saver a try. They're great yarns. They work great together. And they are just really lovely in this pattern. Of course, don't forget your hook, scissors, and yarn needle, and you'll be all set. Thank you so much for watching. Please do go to the link in the description. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you know when we go live. Thanks for watching, everybody.